Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging headfirst into a topic that is, well, absolutely critical for anyone who throws a ball. Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro, a hopeful amateur, or, a parent watching from the stands.
It really affects everyone involved in the game.
Exactly. We're talking about pitching arm injuries, and specifically, we're zeroing in on that notorious UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament in the elbow.
The Tommy John ligament, as many know it.
That's the one. Plus, the often misunderstood lat muscle and just those general strain injuries that can, well, unfortunately, derail an athlete's career.
Yeah, they can be devastating.
Now, you, our amazing listener, you provided us with a fantastic stack of sources for this deep dive. Really great stuff. They cover everything from the latest training techniques, rehab protocols, to the fascinating science behind different exercise types. We're talking isometrics, eccentrics, plyometrics.
All the key loading strategies.
Right. And we've even got insights into the, let's say, sometimes controversial world of weighted balls.
Oh, yeah, that's a hot topic.
And the fundamental principles of exercise physiology. So, our mission today, it's clear. We're going to unpack these sources, pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, and really give you a shortcut to being incredibly well-informed.
Let's cut through the noise.
Exactly. How to reduce risks, how to promote arm health. Because let's be honest, the sheer volume of arm injuries in baseball, from youth leagues right up to the pros, it demands our immediate and intelligent attention.
It really does. It's a major issue.
So let's get into it. Okay, first things first. To truly understand how we might protect the pitching arm, we really need to confront the scope of the problem. Let's start by painting a picture, maybe a stark picture. Just how prevalent are these pitching arm injuries?
Yeah, it's pretty widespread, unfortunately.
The research we looked at, it confirms what many of us have seen, firsthand or read in the headlines. Injuries to the ulnar collateral ligament, the UCL, that main ligament on the inner elbow, they're just increasingly common. And it's across all levels of baseball. This isn't just an MLB issue.
No, not at all. It's hitting younger players hard.
Right. It's affecting players at younger and younger ages. And these injuries, they frequently demand surgery, often that Tommy John surgery we mentioned.
And the recovery is long. Brutal, really.
It is. And what's even more concerning, the sources suggest the rate of these UCL reconstructions is actually expected to keep going up through 2025.
That's a worrying projection. We're not reversing the trend yet.
Not yet. And what I found truly striking, really, from the sources is where the highest incidence is. It isn't necessarily among the big league stars.
No.
No, it's in athletes between the ages of 15 and 24.
Wow. High school and college age, predominantly.
Exactly. Think about that. These are young men just hitting their prime, or maybe even still in high school. One study really brought this home. It showed just under half of NCAA Division I programs had at least one player needing UCL reconstruction just between 2016 and 2019.
Half of Division I programs. That's staggering.
It is. That's a massive number of athletes facing significant time away, maybe having their whole athletic future altered.
It's an alarming trend, isn't it? And, what's fascinating here, or maybe disturbing is a better word, these aren't just minor setbacks,
right.
Not just a few weeks on the shelf.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're often career-altering injuries. And they point to something deeper, right? A systemic issue within the sport, maybe starting way back in player development.
Yeah, seems like it.
The MLB report on pitcher injuries actually calls this a serious concern. It highlights this relentless pursuit of, raw velocity.
Chasing velo.
Exactly, chasing velo. And adopting this max effort style of pitching. It's unfortunately trickled down, way down.
To the younger kids.
To the younger kids, yeah. Kids who often haven't fully matured physically. And critically, these practices, these max effort throws, they're sometimes just completely inappropriate for their young developing bodies.
So we're asking bodies to do things they're not ready for.
In many cases, yes. And here's another layer, sort of a complicating factor. Surgery. While UCL reconstruction, Tommy John, it can help players return to play.
It's seen as this miracle cure sometimes.
Right. But it absolutely does not guarantee success or even a return to their previous performance level.
Okay.
In fact, this perception, this idea that surgery offers a guaranteed return, It might actually be leading pitchers to push themselves even harder to more extreme limits.
Like a safety net that isn't really there?
Precisely. They feel this false sense of security, thinking, oh, I can just get it fixed, like there's a reset button, which ironically could be contributing to more injuries or re-injuries down the line.
Wow.
It's this complex mix, physical demands, psychological pressure, and maybe sometimes just a misunderstanding of what recovery truly entails.
That's a really sobering thought. It's not just the physical mechanics, it's the whole culture around it. Okay, so given this epidemic, as some call it, what are the primary factors driving it? When you dig into the research, what really jumps out as the main culprits?
Well, the evidence points strongly in a few key directions.
Our sources make it abundantly clear, almost screaming it from the pages. Pitching with arm fatigue. That is a massive risk factor, particularly for shoulder and elbow injuries in adolescent baseball pitchers.
Fatigue is huge.
One meta-analysis found a pooled odds ratio of 13.32.
13 times the risk.
13 times. Just let that sink in. You are over 13 times more likely to get injured if you're pitching while fatigued. That's an incredibly high risk, and it feels like the crucial takeaway for any pitcher, coach, parent, anyone involved.
Absolutely. If there's one red flag, fatigue is arguably the biggest.
So does that mean, practically speaking, if a coach sees even the slightest sign of fatigue, they absolutely must pull the pitcher? No questions asked. Is it that clear-cut?
That's the tough part, isn't it? The data strongly suggests caution. Absolutely. Pulling them is often the safest bet. But then you get into the weeds of how we define fatigue.
Right. Is it just the pitcher saying, I'm tired?
Exactly. Is it subjective? Or are there objective things we should track? Velocity drop-off, changes in mechanics. And then there's the whole psychological piece.
Athletes hiding it.
Yeah, especially young athletes. They don't want to let the team down, maybe worried about scholarships or playing time. So they might push through, even when their body is screaming, stop.
That makes it even harder to manage.
It does. And interestingly, things we often talk about, like a long competitive season, pitching for multiple teams, even playing catcher as a secondary position.
Yeah, those come up a lot.
They do.
Yeah.
But that same meta-analysis found they weren't statistically significant risk factors in all contexts studied. Maybe they contribute, but they weren't the smoking guns across the board in that specific analysis.
Okay, so maybe not the primary drivers universally.
Perhaps not universally. Or maybe the effect is less direct than fatigue. However, more recent data does paint a slightly different, it may be more precise picture. It suggests that the number of pitches per appearance, the total number of innings pitched per year, and crucially, pitching with existing elbow pain. Those factors seem to be more consistently predictive of serious elbow injury.
So it's about the intensity of the workload and ignoring warning signs.
Pretty much. While generalized overuse is definitely bad, these specific metrics, high pitch counts per game, high annual innings, and especially pain, those are really strong signals of potential trouble ahead.
That makes sense. It's the intensity and frequency, not just playing year-round necessarily, although that contributes. The MLB report really hits on these points too, right?
It does. It notes that high-level amateur players are often performing year-round with these incredibly intense schedules. This constant grind without enough real rest and recovery just puts them at far greater risk down the line.
And you shared a really concerning stat earlier from a 2023 study.
Ah, yes. The pitch mark compliance.
Right. A staggering 84% of pitchers studied were non-compliant with PitchSmart guidelines. These are the guidelines designed specifically to protect young arms.
84%. It's shocking.
Now, okay, only 14% had actual pitch count violations within a single game. But the bigger issue seemed more systemic.
Exactly. It wasn't just about going over the limit in one game. It was the overall pattern.
Yeah, like 65% of these players reported playing for multiple teams.
Double dipping, essentially.
And a whopping 67%, two-thirds, reported taking less than 3 consecutive months off from any overhand throwing each year.
No real off-season for the arm.
Almost none. It's like everyone knows they should rest, but the pressures, the system, it pushes them not to. What's driving that kind of disregard?
Well, it likely comes back to those incentives we touched on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The desire to play more, showcase events, travel ball, the pressure to be seen by scouts to gain that edge. But like you said, that chronic year-round high-intensity load, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Seems like it.
And if we connect the dots from that, specific MLB data actually clarifies several significant predictors for needing UCL reconstruction.
Okay, what did that show?
Things like Fewer days rest between consecutive games, reinforcing that rest factor again.
Makes sense.
Also, having a smaller repertoire of pitches, maybe less variation puts more consistent stress.
Interesting.
A less pronounced horizontal release location, smaller physical stature, greater mean pitch speed, there's the velocity again, and greater mean pitch counts per game.
So rest, variety, mechanics, velocity, and workload all play a role.
They all seem to factor in. And to give you some context on just how impactful pitch counts are, the research showed a pitcher's odds of needing UCL surgery increased by 2% for every single unit increase in their average pitches per game over a 12-month period.
2% per pitch increase, average out.
Per pitch, yeah. Average per game over a year. Now, to put that in perspective, a pitcher would need to throw an average of 16 fewer pitches per game to get the same reduction in surgery odds that just one additional day of rest between games would provide.
Wow. 16 fewer pitches. Or just one extra day off.
Think about that. One extra day of rest has the same protective effect as significantly reducing your workload in every single game.
That really hammers home the importance of rest and smart scheduling. It quantifies it.
It absolutely does. And it's also, fascinating to see potential distinctions in injury patterns based on, say, different pitching cultures or styles.
Oh, how so?
Well, for instance, some observations suggest American pitchers tend to generate greater ball velocity and experience higher elbow varus torque.
Varus torque, that's the inward stress on the elbow joint, right? Like it's being forced open from the inside.
Exactly, that high force inward bending. And that's directly linked to a higher risk of elbow injuries, like UCL tears.
Okay.
In contrast, some studies note Japanese pitchers sometimes show greater shoulder horizontal adduction torque, that's the arm moving inward across the body more forcefully.
Okay.
And higher shoulder internal rotation velocity. These different biomechanics, while maybe generating velocity differently, might actually put them at a potentially higher risk for shoulder injuries rather than purely elbow issues.
So the stress shows up in different places depending on the mechanics.
It seems plausible, which, this raises an important question. How do these intense, varied demands physically manifest in the elbow and shoulder? And crucially, when do the body's natural adaptations, its attempts to cope, crock the line and become a problem?
Yeah, when does adaptation become pathology? That's a perfect lead-in. Because our bodies, they are incredibly adaptive. They respond to stress. That's how training works. But when does that adaptation signal risk rather than just a normal, healthy response to the crazy stresses of pitching?
That's the million-dollar question in injury prevention, isn't it?
Right.
Where is that line?
Our sources note that these adaptive changes in the medial elbow, the inner side, they're clearly demonstrable on dynamic ultrasound after just one season of competitive pitching.
Just one season. The body changes fast.
Yeah. For instance, the UCL thickness itself is significantly greater in the throwing arm compared to the non-throwing arm. Makes sense. And it's also significantly thicker in pitchers compared to people who don't pitch. Again, logical adaptation.
Right. Specific adaptation to impose demands.
But here's what's really illustrative. A study looked at professional baseball players, specifically 16 asymptomatic subjects. These guys had no pain, no symptoms at all.
Okay. Healthy pitchers.
Seemingly healthy. Yet 87% of them showed what were termed medial UCL abnormalities on an MRI. Things like thickening, discontinuity, or just an irregular appearance, what researchers call signal heterogeneity.
87% showed abnormalities but felt fine.
Exactly. Which strongly suggests that many of these visible changes might simply be adaptations to the extreme demands of throwing. They might not be immediate signs of damage or impending injury at all.
That's precisely where the nuance lies, distinguishing between that healthy, robust adaptation and actual pathology, actual tissue breakdowns, like, a weightlifter develops thicker bones or denser muscles. That's adaptation, not injury.
Or calluses on your hands.
Perfect analogy. It's thicker, tougher, maybe looks different, but it's not injured. Our research confirms that UCL thickness is significantly related to things like high effort throws, the amount of torque generated, especially that high effort torque, and overall arm speed. So the body is definitely responding to those specific demands.
Okay, so thickness correlates with the intensity of throwing.
It does. However, and this is key, connecting this back to the bigger picture, the actual influence of these specific kinematic measurements, the precise ways the body moves during pitching, on these observed anatomical adaptations.
Yeah.
It seems to be of small magnitude. And its clinical significance, honestly, it's largely unknown.
So we see the changes, but we don't know exactly what they mean for future injury risk.
Not with certainty. Furthermore, there doesn't appear to be any discrete threshold. No magic number for UCL thickness that reliably predicts who will get injured and who won't based solely on that adaptation. Which implies that just having a thicker UCL on its own isn't necessarily a direct predictor of imminent injury. It might just mean your body has adapted well to the stress.
So if a thicker UCL isn't a clear warning sign by itself, then how do we tell the difference? How do we know when a body is just adapting strongly versus genuinely being on the brink of failure? It sounds like finding a needle in a haystack, especially with everyone chasing velocity.
You've absolutely nailed the core dilemma. The body does adapt, and it's frankly a marvel of biology that it can. But the challenge, the real challenge, is understanding that precise line, that tipping point between a resilient, adapted tissue and one that's overloaded and about to fail.
Right.
And this is exactly why that relentless pursuit of velocity, that max effort style the MLB report flagged, becomes such a significant concern. When the incentives in the sport drive athletes to constantly push those limits, they might be pushing their bodies beyond the zone of healthy adaptation, maybe without any clear anatomical warning signs like pain until it's too late. It becomes about managing that incredibly subtle transition before it becomes a full-blown injury. And that's incredibly difficult. Okay, so with that foundation laid, understanding the challenges, the body's adaptations, let's transition a bit. Let's dive into the fundamental biology of how tendons actually respond to stress, to loading, and importantly, to injury. Because this understanding, it's absolutely critical if we want to talk seriously about prevention and effective recovery.
Yeah, getting down to the tissue level.
Exactly. Let's talk tendons. Tendons are truly the unsung heroes of movement, aren't they?
They really are. We focus on muscles, but tendons connect everything.
Precisely. They're critical for joint function. They act as that vital yet often overlooked link, transmitting forces from our muscles to our bones. That's what allows us to move, to throw, jump, hit, basically, to do anything athletic.
Right.
And they're incredible mechanical properties. They come largely from their main component, type like collagen fibers.
Collagen. Hear that word a lot.
You do. And these fibers aren't just randomly thrown together. They're arranged in these dense, parallel arrays. It's a highly organized, hierarchical structure.
Yeah.
From the molecular level all the way up to the tissue scale.
Okay, very structured.
Very. And this precise organization is what makes them incredibly resilient. It gives them high tensile stiffness, meaning they resist stretching really well, specifically in the direction the fibers run. And what's fascinating here is understanding this intricate structure, this careful arrangement of collagen is absolutely key. It helps us understand not only how they get injured, but maybe more importantly, how they heal, or sometimes how they don't heal properly.
Okay. Structure dictates function and healing potential.
You got it. And tendons are also what we call mechanosensitive tissues.
Mechanosensitive, meaning they sense mechanics.
Exactly. Their cells, the tenocytes, actually respond to mechanical cues, the pushes, pulls, stretches they experience day in, day out. They respond by sending out biochemical signals.
So movement talks to the cells.
Perfectly put. Movement talks to the cells. So mechanical loading isn't just physical stress, it's crucial information. It's vital for their healthy development and for maintaining their healthy state, what scientists call homeostasis. And this loading, it actually increases collagen synthesis. It tells the body to build more collagen, thereby strengthening the tissue.
So it's not just muscles getting bigger with lifting, the tendons themselves are getting signals to build and reinforce.
That's exactly right. The stress tells them to adapt and get stronger. And we can see these connective tissue adaptations quite clearly in the real world, not just in labs.
Oh yeah, like where?
Well, for instance, studies on performance sport climbers. Guys who've been climbing at a high level for, say, 15 years or more.
Okay. Lots of finger stress there.
Immense finger stress. They show significantly thicker A2 and A4 annular pulleys and also thicker palmar plates in their fingers compared to non-climbers. These are specific connective tissues that basically hold the tendons close to the bone in the hand.
So their bodies literally rebuilt those areas thicker and stronger.
Precisely. It's a clear, visible demonstration of the body's profound adaptive capacity in response to consistent high mechanical demand. It adapts by becoming stronger, thicker, more resilient.
That's truly fascinating how specific activities can literally reshape these deep structures.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. How does that load, the actual mechanical stress, how does it change tendons at the cellular and molecular level? What are the specific mechanisms driving these adaptations?
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Our sources explain that the ultimate goal, really, of any intervention for tendinopathy, that catch-all term for tendon pain and degeneration,
Tendon problems,
is basically to rebuild that resilient structure we talked about. It's about increasing the amount of that directionally oriented collagen, getting the fibers lined up right, and increasing the density of the cross-links between those fibers.
like reinforcing the rebar in concrete.
Good analogy. And this, in turn, directly increases the tensile strength of the tendon, makes it more robust, better able to handle stress without breaking down. Now, at a molecular level, you can almost picture it like a construction site inside your tendon.
Okay.
There are specialized sites called fibropositors where the collagen building blocks are actually assembled and then transported out.
Collagen factories.
Kind of. And the key players directing this whole construction project, well, there's a molecule called scleraxis, or SEXEX. It's absolutely essential for tendogenesis, basically, kicking off the formation of brand new tendon tissue.
It's a foreman, maybe.
Could be. Then there's transforming growth factor beta, TGFAC. Think of this one as the master architect. It oversees cell growth, differentiation, and the production of all the raw materials, the extracellular matrix, or ECM, that forms the tendon structure.
So SICX starts it, TGF folds oversees the build.
Roughly, yeah. And crucially, altered mechanical loading, too much, too little, maybe the wrong type of load can directly promote changes in the expression of these key molecular signals. It basically tells the construction crew what to build, or maybe even to stop building or build something different.
The load is the instruction manual.
In a way, yes. And to give you a really concrete example, scleraxis, 6X, that starter molecule, it's foundational in the early stages of tendon formation or regeneration, getting things going.
Right.
Another key player, called MKX, is necessary for the later stages maturation and growth of the collagen fibrils, making them bigger and stronger, refining the structure.
Got it. Early stage versus late stage.
Right. And interestingly, after a patellar tendon injury, guess which one increases?
Let me guess. 6X, the early stage one.
Bingo. 6X increases, but not MKX, which suggests that when a tendon is injured, its healing response actually mimics aspects of its early developmental process. It's almost like it tries to hit a reset button and rebuild from a more basic blueprint.
That's fascinating. Like it's trying to become a new tendon again.
Kind of seems that way.
That's a perfect way to put it, like hitting reset.
Right.
But this whole mechanobiological response, this loading effect, it's a classic double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah, how so?
Well, think of it as a delicate balance. Just enough stress, the right kind of stress, helps your tendons adapt and get stronger. We just talked about that.
All right, the positive adaptation.
But too much stress, that constant, relentless overloading, maybe without enough recovery, that's what triggers the breakdown. That's what leads to conditions like tendinosis, those micro tears we mentioned, and ultimately a weakened tendon that's prone to rupture.
Okay.
And the key insight here is that the line between strengthening and damaging, it's remarkably fine. And it's constantly shifting based on individual factors, recovery, nutrition, everything.
Not a fixed line.
Definitely not. Animal models, for example, looking at rotator cuff tendinosis, they clearly show that overuse activity increases inflammation, messes up the tendon structure, and decreases its material properties, makes it weaker and less resilient.
Okay, so overuse definitely leads to breakdown.
Absolutely. And to illustrate just how detrimental inappropriate loading during healing can be, studies show that treadmill exercise on an already injured Achilles tendon, it actually induced more macrophage activation. That's an immune response, not always good in this context, increased scar formation, and led to a loss of tendon function.
So exercising an injured tendon the wrong way made it worse.
Made it worse, yeah. Similarly, in a rat rotator cuff model, putting them through exercise after surgical repair actually led to significant decreases in the mechanical, structural, and compositional properties where the tendon attaches to bone. The researchers concluded it produced more material of lesser quality.
Wow. More tissue, but weaker tissue.
Exactly. So pushing too hard too soon or with the wrong type of exercise during recovery can actively impede proper healing and create an even weaker, more vulnerable tissue in the long run.
That's a critical point for anyone going through rehab. You can't just push through pain.
Definitely not.
So if too much load is bad during healing, what about no load? Should you just immobilize an injured limb completely? Is that the answer?
The immobilization question.
Yeah.
It's a great one. And the answer is, well, complicated. It's not straightforward.
Okay.
Because the absence of load can also be problematic. Complete unloading needs to be used very cautiously.
Yeah.
In many cases, it can actually be detrimental to healing.
How so?
Well, in animal models, tendon repairs that were completely unloaded showed a lower cross-sectional area, they got it smaller, and a reduced load to failure. They were weaker.
So no stress made them atrophy, essentially.
Essentially, yes. Furthermore, tendon cells that are deprived of mechanical stress, they show an increase in matrix metalloproteinases. MMPs, think of these as breakdown enzymes.
Okay, things that chew up tissue.
Exactly. And they showed a decrease in tissue inhibitors of MMPs, TIMPs. So more breakdown, less protection against breakdown. The overall state becomes catabolic. The body starts dismantling the tissue because it's not getting the signals that it's needed.
Wow. Use it or lose it even during healing to some extent.
To some extent, yes. But here's where it gets even more nuanced and frankly a bit paradoxical. Some animal models, specifically looking at rotator cuff injuries, actually showed that immobilization seemed to enhance the healing of the tendon to the bone when compared directly to allowing exercise right after repair.
Wait, immobilization was better in those cases?
In those specific models, for tendon-to-bone healing, yes. This immobilization led to reduced collagen type 3, which is often associated with scar tissue, and increased other more beneficial collagens. It improved the tissue's viscoelastic properties, its elastin properties, even the collagen organization looked better.
That seems completely counterintuitive to what you just said about unloading being bad.
It does, doesn't it? And this is why context is everything. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes crystal clear that the specific type and amount of load, or even the strategic lack of load, like temporary immobilization, is absolutely critical, and it's highly context dependent.
Depends on the exact injury, the tissue involved.
Exactly. The specific tendon, the type of injury, is it mid-substance, is it at the insertion point, and the precise stage of healing, early inflammation, proliferation, remodeling. There's truly no one-size-fits-all answer, which is why individualized rehab, guided by someone who understands these nuances, is so incredibly important.
That's a crucial distinction, the right load at the right time for the right injury. But even when we try to get the loading right, healing doesn't always go perfectly, does it? Our sources highlight a really significant challenge, the scar tissue dilemma.
Ah, yes, scar tissue. The body's quick fix, but often not the best long-term solution.
Right. When these force-transmitting structures like tendons get damaged, the body's natural healing process very often results in the formation of this fibrovascular scar tissue. And unfortunately, as you implied, the scar tissue almost always has inferior mechanical properties, inferior biochemical properties, compared to the original healthy tissue it's trying to replace.
It's just not as good.
Yeah.
Not as strong, not as elastic.
Exactly. It's like patching a high-performance race car tire with regular duct tape. It might hold for a little while, maybe, but it's just not designed for the same forces or duration.
Good analogy.
For instance, in those rat models of patellar tendinopathy, the injury caused significant collagen disorganization. The fibers weren't lined up nicely anymore. Increased cellularity, increased vascularity, and the formation of this loose, weak connective tissue, basically SAR. And the scar tissue, because it's inherently less stiff than the native healthy tendon tissue around it, can actually become stress shielded, meaning it doesn't get enough stress.
Right.
Precisely. If a stiffer, healthy portion of the tendon is right next to it, acting in parallel, the healthy part takes most of the load, shielding the weaker scar tissue from the very mechanical signals it needs to remodel properly.
So the scar never gets the message to toughen up.
Exactly. It creates a very problematic scenario for proper functional healing. The scar tissue simply isn't getting the right signals to mature and strengthen.
And the implications of that stress shielding, they're profound. It's something athletes, coaches, therapists really need to grasp. Consider this really striking example from the sources.
Okay.
Researchers took a healthy patellar tendon in an animal model. Then they inserted a thin stainless steel wire between the kneecap and the shin bone, basically running it in parallel with the tendon.
So the wire took some of the load off the healthy tendon.
Exactly. It stretch shielded the healthy tendon. And the result, just doing that, led to a 5-fold increase in cellularity within the tendon, a decrease of approximately 58% in the median collagen fibril diameter. The building blocks got smaller and decreased matrix orientation. The whole structure became disorganized.
So shielding a healthy tendon made it look like scar tissue.
In essence, yes, simply shielding it from its normal mechanical stress started turning healthy tissue into scar-like tissue. It powerfully demonstrates just how crucial that mechanical load is, not just for healing, but for maintaining normal tendon health and structure.
Wow. That's incredible.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it highlights why loading the healing tissue correctly is so vital. Healing tissues actually require greater bulk strain, more overall stretch or deformation for their collagen fibers to align properly with the direction of the tensile load.
They need more signal to get organized.
Exactly. If a scar is stress shielded, its cells just don't receive sufficient tensile or shear stimuli. That hinders proper remodeling and prevents it from ever becoming truly strong and functional like the original tissue.
Okay, that makes sense.
And there's another potential problem with scar tissue, especially in core lesions, like deep inside the tendon. Reductions in the transverse cross-sectional area, basically. The tendon getting thinner side to side when it's stretched.
Yeah.
That can lead to radial compression of the cells within the scar. Imagine squeezing a wet sponge from the sides as you pull it long ways.
Okay, compression from the sides.
Right. When a tendon is under tension, especially if there's an injury in its core, that tension can actually compress the cells within the scar radially. And this compression, especially combined with the lack of the proper stretching forces due to stress shielding, can actually signal those cells to change their identity.
Change their identity? How?
They might shift their phenotype, their cellular behavior and function from being tendon cells, tenocytes, to becoming fibrocartilage cells, chondrocytes.
Cartilage cells in a tendon.
Yeah. Fibrocartilage cells are better suited to withstand compression, but they're not good at transmitting the high tensile forces that tendons need to handle. So you get the wrong cell type for the job. This is thought to happen in conditions like jumper's knee or patellar tendinopathy.
So the stress environment tells the cells what to become, and sometimes it tells them wrong.
That seems to be the case. There's even molecular evidence for this switch. A specific signaling molecule, BMP4, when it was released in engineered ligaments in a lab setting, it showed a localized change in cell phenotype. The cells switched from expressing ligament markers to expressing fibrocartilage markers, things like decreased chloroaxis, or tendon starter, and increased SOX9, aggrecan tenacin C, all markers associated with cartilage.
Wow, molecular proof of the switch.
Yeah, it hints at this molecular switch that can flip between tendon and fibrocartilage based on the mechanical signals, which, brings us back to the practical application. This raises an important question. Knowing all this intricate stuff about mechanobiology, about the scar tissue dilemma, how our bodies often create this weaker or less functional patch when healing, how can we actually apply these insights? How do we proactively prevent injuries and, more importantly, treat them effectively, especially when the body's default might be to form scar tissue instead of truly regenerating resilient tendon?
Yeah, how do we nudge the body towards better healing?
Exactly. That's the challenge for our training and rehabilitation strategies.
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it brings us perfectly to the most practical part of our deep dive today. What do our sources actually tell us about what works? How can we potentially reduce these pitching arm injuries, UCL, lat, general strains? And what specific effects do different kinds of training and rehab have on healing or reducing that injury risk? Let's get into the solutions.
All right, let's talk application.
Let's start with a really important challenge in rehab itself, especially after something major like a UCL reconstruction. The standard rehab protocols, they typically rely on this progressive return to throwing, often asking pitchers to throw at what they feel is, say, 50% effort or 75% effort.
Objective effort levels, yeah.
Right. But here's the problem, and it seems like a critical one based on the sources. Pitchers often, maybe even usually, generate way higher forces than intended when they're trying to throw at these subjective effort levels.
Their perception of effort is off.
It seems so. They might think they're cruising at 50%, but their arm is actually experiencing much more stress. One source provided a really striking illustration of this. Pitches thrown at what the pitcher perceived as 50% subjective effort were significantly faster, averaging like 56 miles per hour compared to only 37 miles per hour.
Difference.
Huge difference. And they generated significantly more elbow torque, around 37 Newton meters versus just 19 Newton meters, compared to pitches that were thrown at a velocity-controlled 50%.
So controlling the actual speed versus just feeling 50% effort resulted in almost half the torque on the elbow.
Exactly. That gap between perceived effort and actual physical output is, well, it seems like a massive hidden risk during recovery. If you're trying to gradually reintroduce stress, bit by bit, but the pitcher is inadvertently applying double the force you planned for.
You're basically asking for a setback. You're overloading the healing tissue.
Seems like it. You're just inviting re-injury.
That's a really critical piece of data, isn't it? It shows just how much our internal effort gauge can be off, especially after injury and time off.
Yeah.
So the solution then seems pretty clear and practical based on that finding.
Which is?
Using a radar gun.
Yeah.
Using objective feedback to guide that partial effort throwing during rehab is highly recommended.
Takes the guesswork out.
Completely. It turns that subjective feel into a measurable, controllable output. And the research backs this up. The source mentioned that a 10% decrease in the percentage of maximum velocity was associated with a 13% decrease in the percentage of maximum elbow torque.
So there's a direct measurable link. Control the speed, you control the stress.
Precisely. By controlling the velocity with objective feedback, like a radar gun, you're directly, and much more safely, controlling the stress on that healing elbow. This is absolutely critical for protecting a reconstruction or any healing tissue and ensuring a truly controlled, gradual recovery.
That makes so much sense. It's just about bringing objectivity to maybe the most crucial phase of coming back. Now, beyond just controlling pitch velocity, our sources also really emphasize the importance of a well-structured return-to-throwing schedule.
Yes, the overall plan matters hugely.
It sounds like it means starting really slow with low-intent throws, or what one source called massage throws.
Massage throws, I like that term.
Yeah, me too. Using those to build an optimal base, and only then gradually adding volume and distance over time. Can you explain a bit more what massage throws actually entail? What does that look like?
Certainly. Massage throwing, as described in the source, really focuses on freedom, relaxation, and effortlessness. It's not about speed, it's not about power, not at all in this early phase.
Okay.
It's about allowing the arm, and really the entire body, to readapt to the throwing motion in a very gentle, progressive manner. In this initial phase, the goal is really to promote optimal range of motion, letting the arm and all the surrounding muscle groups progressively stretch out, loosen up, get reacquainted with the movement.
Feeling it out.
Exactly. The idea, as the source put it, is that your arm should feel opened up and free after these throws, not tight or strained. It's very much about listening to your body, letting your arm be the guide. You're essentially building an adaptable foundation before you even think about adding intensity.
I can imagine how liberating that must feel after potentially months of being shut down, just moving freely again.
Absolutely. It's a crucial psychological step too.
What about the actual path of the ball during this phase? Our sources mentioned throwing with arc versus throwing on a line. What's the difference there, and why does it matter in rehab?
That's another really insightful element from the rehab protocols discussed. Gradually throwing the ball with arc, essentially aiming slightly uphill, rather than always throwing on a flat linear path, seems to promote several vital benefits for the recovering pitcher.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, as we just discussed with massage throws, it helps optimize range of motion. It allows the arm and shoulder complex to stretch out more completely and safely as you extend the distance.
Okay, more natural stretch.
Exactly. Second, it seems to enhance proprioception, that body awareness and variability. By changing the release point slightly on each throw to create that arc, you're fostering better feel and adaptability for the pitcher. Think about it. Pitchers need to command the ball from many different arm slots and release points. This helps redevelop that versatility early on.
Right, not just grooving one rigid motion.
Precisely. Third, throwing with arc promotes better activation and loading of the glutes, hips, and pelvis. It encourages the pitcher to use their whole body, getting the legs and core involved right from the start of the throwing program.
Getting the kinetic chain working again.
You got it. And finally, it seems to encourage staying connected to the ground longer, using ground forces more effectively, especially when you incorporate a crow hop, which we'll get to.
Okay, so what's the downside of just throwing on a line then?
Well, in stark contrast, throwing strictly on a line, especially early on, can actually restrict athleticism. It can make an athlete feel rigid, kind of locked into one plane. And it often hinders those who are maybe capped at shorter throwing distances during the early phases of rehab. It prevents that natural fluid integration of the entire kinetic chain.
So it's really about making the throw a full-body athletic movement again right from the start, not just isolating the arm?
That's the key principle, yes.
And speaking of the full body, you mentioned crow hopping. Our sources specifically advocate for crow hopping over just shuffling forward during the return to throwing. Why is that distinction important?
It's vital for integrating the lower body properly. Crow hopping, that step behind and drive forward, optimizes lower body sequencing and the use of ground reaction forces. It effectively helps protect the arm by ensuring the stress of the throw is distributed across the entire body, generated from the ground up. It allows for a more natural, rhythmic buildup of momentum and power, starting with the legs and core. Shuffling forward, on the other hand, often leads to less lower body involvement, potentially placing more disproportionate and vulnerable stress back onto the shoulder and elbow. You're trying to reestablish that harmonious, efficient movement pattern.
Got it. Use the legs to save the arm.
That's a good way to put it. The overall philosophy here, as distilled in our sources, seems to be Optimal freedom prior to optimal explosiveness.
Freedom before force.
Exactly. This means refraining from high-intent throws, especially off a mound, until the pitcher has reached their peak throwing distance out in the extension phase of the program. You need to ensure the full throwing mechanics are grooved, the range of motion is there, and the arm is fully prepared before adding the significant stress and intensity of mound work.
Makes sense. Build the foundation first.
Absolutely. And maybe above all else, the sources stress self-regulation. The pitcher must learn to listen to their body and trust their instincts throughout this entire long process.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But no coach, no therapist, no radar gun knows exactly how that arm feels moment to moment like the pitcher does. Ignoring those internal signals, trying to push through inappropriate pain or fatigue is just a fast track to setbacks and re-injury.
Trusting the process and trusting yourself. Crucial.
Okay, so building on that whole concept of intelligent, targeted loading during rehab, our sources also dive deep into how different types of muscle contractions can be strategically leveraged. We're talking eccentrics, isometrics, plyometrics, how these can promote arm health, enhance healing, and maybe even reduce injury risk in the first place.
Right, using specific exercises to send specific signals to the tissues.
Precisely. Each type seems to send unique signals, and understanding this is really key to tailoring effective training and rehab programs, not just for pitchers, but for many athletes dealing with tendon issues.
Okay, let's break them down. What about eccentric training first?
All right, eccentrics. This is when the muscle is lengthening while it's under tension. Think about slowly lowering a heavy weight, resisting gravity.
The negative part of the lift.
Exactly. Eccentric training is very commonly prescribed for tendinopathy, for tendon problems, and it's known to be highly beneficial for pain management. Plus, studies show it increases biomarkers of collagen synthesis, essentially. It signals the body to build more of that crucial tendon protein we talked about.
So less pain and more building blocks. Sounds good.
It does. For example, one study looked at 190 patients who had chronic Achilles tendinopathy. They went through a 12-week program focused on eccentric stretching, and they showed significant pain reduction.
Okay, solid evidence for pain relief.
Yes. However, there's an important nuance here. While the pain got better, the clinical improvements didn't always correlate perfectly with visible changes in the tendon's internal structure when they looked at it on an ultrasound, what doctors call the echo pattern.
So the pain went away, but the tendon didn't necessarily look healed on the scan.
Not always, or not as much as you might expect based on the pain relief. This suggests that maybe these eccentric exercises are improving the load tolerance in the surrounding musculature or in the healthy parts of the tendon, rather than directly remodeling the specific injured lesion itself.
So it helps the system cope better, even if the hole isn't fully patched.
That could be part of the mechanism, yeah. It's a subtle but potentially crucial distinction in how we think about what eccentrics are doing. Now, for injury prevention, specifically thinking about hamstring strains, which are common in explosive athletes.
Yeah, pitchers need healthy hamstrings too.
Absolutely. The sources recommend high-load eccentric contractions performed at a slow to moderate speed. And importantly, with the focus at the knee joint and the hip held in a large flexion position around 80 degrees.
Okay, very specific positioning.
Very specific.
Oh.
This setup is designed to expose the hamstrings to greater elongation stress while they're contracting, thereby theoretically preparing them better for the intense demands of sprinting, decelerating, and pitching.
Got it. So eccentrics. Good for pain, collagen building, maybe general load tolerance, and specific prevention exercises. Okay, that's a great summary of eccentrics. What about isometric training? That's where the muscle contracts but doesn't change length, right? Like pushing a wall?
Exactly. Holding a contraction steady. And isometrics have gained a lot of attention recently, especially for their potential to provide almost immediate pain reduction in tendinopathy.
Immediate. How does that work?
The mechanism is quite fascinating. It seems that holding these long isometric contractions, typically 30 seconds or even longer, induces a phenomenon called stress relaxation.
Stress relaxation.
Yeah. Essentially, the stiffness of the healthy, stronger part of the tendon temporarily decreases during that sustained hold. And because that healthy part becomes slightly less stiff for a moment,
the load shifts onto the injured part.
You got it. It effectively shifts tensile load onto the injured region, or the scar tissue. And this direct, targeted load onto the previously stressed, shielded area is thought to be crucial for signaling proper healing and remodeling within the lesion itself.
Wow, that's clever. Using the hold to sneak the load onto the scar.
It is pretty clever. And there's some molecular evidence, too. A rat patellar tendinopathy study found that isometric loading specifically increased the expression of tendon markers, things like CLL1A1 and scleraxis, SCX, indicating tendon-like tissue formation, whereas dynamic loading in that same study actually increased cartilage markers.
So the type of load sent different signals. Isometric said build tendon, dynamic said build cartilage.
That's what that study suggested, yes.
Yeah.
It implies that these long isometric holds might be particularly good at signaling for the development of tendon-like tissue, which is exactly what you want when healing a tendon injury.
That's compelling. Any human evidence.
Yes. Another study showed that 12 weeks of long-duration isometric training significantly increased knee extensor strength by about 34% and also improved tendon stiffness in human quadriceps. And notably, this happened without changing the tendon's overall cross-sectional area, its thickness.
So the tendon got stiffer, more resilient, without just getting bulkier. A quality change.
Exactly. A qualitative improvement in the tissue's properties.
Right.
And there was a really compelling case study mentioned too. A professional basketball player with chronic debilitating patellar tendinopathy.
Jumper's knee.
Right. He saw dramatic improvement with a program that combined gelatin ingestion, we'll touch on nutrition later, and this stress relaxation loading using long isometric holds. He did holds at over 80% of his 1-rep max for 10 to 30 seconds.
Okay. Heavy, sustained hold.
Heavy hold. And the results. He showed decreased reactivity on his MRI scans, increased thickness, specifically in the mid-substance of the tendon, and significantly reduced pain. It really highlights the potential power of these specific isometric loading strategies when applied correctly.
Fantastic example. Okay, so isometrics for immediate pain relief and potentially targeted loading of the scar tissue. What about plyometric training, the explosive stuff?
Right, plyometrics. Think jumping, bounding, medicine ball, throws rapid stretching followed immediately by rapid contracting of muscles. This type of training is really well known for enhancing neuromuscular adaptations.
How the nerves and muscles talk to each other.
Exactly. Improving that communication, making it faster and more efficient. And plyos also increase the stiffness of the entire muscle extracellular matrix tendon unit.
Making the whole system springier.
That's a perfect way to think about it. A stiffer spring stores and releases energy more efficiently. For example, one study found that 14 weeks of plyometric training in humans led to a 35% decrease in the Achilles tendon dissipation coefficient.
Dissipation coefficient, meaning
less energy was lost as heat during the stress shortening cycle. The tendon became more efficient at returning energy.
Okay, less energy wasted.
Right. And there was also an upward trend of about 24% in tendon stiffness. Again, this happened without any change in the tendon's cross-sectional area.
Another quality improvement, not just size.
Exactly. Indicating a qualitative change in the tissue itself, making it better at transmitting force. And no surprise, it also improved their jump performance.
Makes sense. How does this apply outside of jumping?
Well, think about pitching. It's an incredibly explosive, rapid stretch-shortening cycle in the shoulder and arm. Increased stiffness and efficiency could mean more velocity with potentially less strain. Also, interestingly, in endurance athletes, adding explosive-type strength training improved their 5-kilometer time trial performance by about 3%.
From explosive training, not endurance.
Right. And the improvement was largely attributed to improved running economy, using less energy at a given speed. This was linked to enhanced neural function, and that increased muscle ECM tendon stiffness. So a stiffer, springier system is more efficient, whether you're running or potentially throwing.
Fascinating connection. Okay, what about just good old general resistance training, lifting weights?
Absolutely still important. Heavy, slow resistance, HSR exercise in particular, can also be very effective for overall tendon health and adaptation.
Okay.
Our sources illustrate, for example, that the strain on the patellar tendon during back squats increased proportionally with the load. It went from about 4.7% strain at 40% of a 1-rep max, 1 RM, up to 8.2% strain at 80% 1 RM.
So the tendon stretches more as the weight gets heavier.
Logically, yes. And while there's definitely individual variability in exactly how much strain someone's tendon experiences at a given load.
Yeah, everyone's different.
These findings suggest that we can develop personalized loading recommendations, maybe based on someone's maximum voluntary isometric contraction, MVC strength. We could prescribe loads designed to achieve an optimal level of tendon strain for adaptation without overloading it.
Tailoring the weight to get the right signal.
Precisely. The key insight across all these types, eccentrics, isometrics, plyos, HSR, is that you can strategically choose the type and intensity of load to send specific desired signals to the tendon tissue.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means these different exercises, they're not just about building brute strength. They are sophisticated tools. They're about sending precise, targeted signals to your connective tissues. Depending on your goal, injury prevention, rehab, performance, and the specific state of your tissues, you or your therapist can strategically choose these different loading types to encourage the right kind of adaptation, the right kind of healing. It's a much more nuanced, science-backed approach to arm health than just, say, lifting weights randomly.
Well put. It's about intelligent loading.
That's such a powerful takeaway, intelligence-specific loading. But, okay, we've talked about smart loading strategies. What about the tools pitchers are actually using out there, often specifically in that pursuit of velocity? There's one tool in particular that always seems to ignite fierce debate.
I think I know where you're going.
Weighted balls. It's a practice shrouded in, well, both hype and a fair bit of controversy, and our listener was definitely keen for us to unpack the science behind them.
Yeah, they're everywhere now, aren't they?
They really are. And the programs, like those from Driveline Baseball, using balls ranging from, 100 grams up to 2,000 grams, they have shown some impressive results on paper.
The velocity gains are often cited.
Right. Their data indicated average pitching velocity increases of around 2.7 mph back in 2016, and maybe 3.3 mph in 2017 among pitchers who went through their programs.
Non-trivial gains.
Definitely not insignificant. And other studies may be using heavier plyo balls, like 2 to 8 pounds in protocol, sometimes called the Ballistic 6. They also reported significant increases. Shoulder internal rotation power went up, throwing distance increased, and velocity improved.
Okay.
There's even some research suggesting that throwing these weighted implements might improve proprioception, that sense of where your arm is in space, helping a pitcher develop better feel.
So on the surface, it looks like.
Yeah.
Use weighted balls, throw harder. Seems simple.
Seems simple, but it's clear the velocity gains can be there. But this raises an important question, doesn't it? While these velocity increases are often observed, the actual mechanism behind how they happen, it's not conclusively understood.
And that's the crux of the issue, really. The why is still fuzzy.
Yeah, and this is a really critical point. In fact, some research suggests that the whole idea that weighted ball training increases arm strength, in the traditional sense, like lifting weights makes your biceps stronger, that might actually be incorrect.
So it's not just making the muscles involved stronger.
It might not be that simple. The forces involved in throwing are incredibly complex and rapid, very different from a controlled lift. The mechanics are different.
Okay.
For instance, one study dug into the kinematics. They found that while there were significant increases in maximum internal rotation velocity of the shoulder, a big increase, actually, around 232 degrees per second on average.
Faster rotation.
Right. But they also found decreases in shoulder abduction, how high the arm gets, and shoulder external rotation at the moment of ball release.
So faster internal rotation, but less range in other parts of the motion.
Seems like it in that study. And critically, they found no significant changes in the maximum angular velocity of the torso or the pelvis.
So the gains weren't coming from using the core or legs better.
Didn't appear to be, according to that research. So what does this mean? Well, it suggests that the velocity gains might be coming from altered mechanics at the shoulder or elbow, or maybe increased stress concentrated on certain tissues within the arm itself, rather than a holistic improvement in arm strength or power generated efficiently from the entire kinetic chain, ground up.
So it's like finding a shortcut to velocity that might put more strain locally on the arm.
That's a potential interpretation, yes. It's like squeezing water through a narrower pipe. The water comes out faster, sure, but the pressure on the pipe itself increases significantly.
That's a serious trade-off to consider, if that's what's happening. Getting velocity maybe at the expense of putting the arm in a potentially more vulnerable position, or at least not improving how the whole body contributes to the throw.
Exactly. And this brings us right back to that core concern that was highlighted in the MLB report on pitcher injuries.
It's chasing velocity.
Chasing velocity. It's identified as a key driver for injuries, and it's just heavily incentivized throughout the baseball world, often despite the potential long-term cost to a player's body.
The rewards for throwing hard are immediate and obvious. The risks are often delayed or less visible.
Precisely. So, if we try to apply sound exercise physiology principles here, especially with arm health being a primary goal alongside performance, It seems crucial to understand how weighted balls impact those specific kinematic measures, how the body actually moves, and the resulting tissue load. We need to look beyond just the radar gun reading.
Focus on the process, not just the outcome number.
Right. The lack of a clear, agreed-upon understanding of the precise mechanism for velocity increase, combined with this questioning of whether it truly builds functional arm strength in a balanced way, it means that applying traditional principles of weight training directly to weighted ball use, it's still murky. It warrants significant caution and a really individualized approach.
Yeah, it's not as simple as more weight equals more strength equals more velocity in this context.
Doesn't seem to be. The goal should always be sustainable performance and arm health, not just chasing peak velocity at any potential cost. It feels like we still have a lot to learn about how to optimize weighted ball training for both performance and long-term safety.
Agreed. More research is definitely needed to understand the long-term effects and the underlying mechanisms better.
That's a really critical, nuanced point on weighted balls. And it's clear, yeah, the science is still playing catch-up to the hype in some ways. But let's shift gears now to something that's arguably just as foundational, maybe even more so, for arm health and recovery. But it often gets completely overlooked, or at least downplayed.
Ah, the fuel for the machine.
Exactly, what we put into our bodies.
Nutrition, the literal building blocks. Can't build or repair without the right materials.
Precisely. Our sources, particularly one titled Nutrition for the Prevention and Treatment of Injuries, clearly emphasize that several nutritional strategies can and should be implemented to help reduce injury risk and also potentially decrease recovery time if an injury does happen.
Makes sense. The body needs resources to heal.
And a crucial point highlighted right away is that athletes should never be in a state of chronic low energy availability.
Big red flag.
Huge. It's identified as a major risk factor, especially for bone injuries like stress fractures. If your body simply doesn't have enough fuel coming in to cover its basic needs and the demands of intense training, it just can't maintain itself properly, let alone heal effectively or adapt positively to the stresses of pitching.
It's running on fumes. Something has to give.
Right. What does low energy availability actually look like in practice for an athlete? It's not always obvious, is it?
No, it can be quite insidious.
Yeah.
Low energy availability basically means you're consistently not eating enough calories to cover the energy you burn through exercise, plus just your basic daily living functions.
So intake doesn't match output.
Right. And it can manifest in various ways. Chronic fatigue that just doesn't go away, difficulty recovering between training sessions, hormonal imbalances, that's a big one, especially for female athletes. But males too, mood disturbances, and as you mentioned, that increased risk for bone stress injuries because the body doesn't have the resources for bone turnover.
Okay.
It's a tricky problem because athletes might think they're eating healthy, or maybe they're intentionally restricting calories to stay lean, but they're actually underfueling their body's fundamental needs for health and repair.
A dangerous state to be in, especially for a throwing athlete putting massive stress on their system.
Absolutely. So to support robust arm health and recovery, it's vital, really vital, to ensure there are no underlying dietary deficiencies, especially in critical nutrients. We're talking protein, obviously.
For muscle repair.
Yes, but also vitamin C.
For collagen.
Crucial for collagen synthesis, yes. Vitamin D, copper, those N3 polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-3s.
Anti-inflammatory.
Has one role, yes. Yeah. And calcium, of course, for bone health. All of these are absolutely indispensable for the health and structural integrity of bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, everything.
They're the raw materials.
They're the raw materials, and some are the catalysts for all those complex mechanobiological processes we've been discussing today. You need the parts and the workers.
So it's not just about protein for muscles getting bigger. It's this whole spectrum of nutrients needed to build and maintain everything from the ground up.
Precisely. You can't build a strong house with missing bricks or faulty wiring. For example, our sources point to gelatin supplementation as an area that's getting growing interest.
Gelatin. Like Jell-O.
Well, derived from the same source, collagen. Specific hydrolyzed collagen or gelatin supplements. Studies are suggesting that taking these, especially timed around exercise, can potentially improve cartilage thickness, decrease knee pain in athletes with osteoarthritis, and might even reduce injury risk or accelerate return to play after tendon or ligament issues.
How does that work?
The theory is it provides the specific amino acid building blocks like glycine, proline, hydroxyproline that are needed for collagen synthesis, right when the mechanical loading from exercise is signaling the cells to build. It's like delivering a load of high-quality bricks directly to the construction site, just as the foreman calls for them.
Timing the delivery with the signal.
Seems to be key. It looks like it could act as both a prophylactic, a preventive measure, and potentially a therapeutic treatment for tendons, ligaments, maybe even bone health. Still more research needed, but promising.
Interesting. But supplements aren't the whole story, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's really important to stress a food-first approach for all nutritional solutions. Getting these nutrients from whole, nutrient-dense foods should always be the priority.
Real food first.
Always. Supplements should only be used to fill specific, identified gaps, ideally under the guidance of a qualified professional, like a registered dietitian or a sports nutritionist who understands the athlete's specific needs and context.
Good advice. What about during an actual injury? Are there specific nutritional needs then?
Yes, absolutely. When an injury occurs, there are additional critical nutritional considerations. A major goal is to prevent excessive loss of lean muscle mass, which can happen surprisingly quickly during periods of inactivity or mobilization.
Muscle wasting.
Exactly. So ensuring sufficient energy intake, you actually might need more calories initially to fuel the inflammatory and repair processes, and especially sufficient protein intake is crucial to facilitate tissue repair.
Even more protein when injured.
Potentially, yes. This is particularly important because injured muscle can sometimes become anabolically resistant.
Anabolically resistant, meaning it doesn't respond as well to growth signals.
Precisely. It means the muscle needs an even higher dose of protein than usual to adequately stimulate muscle protein synthesis, the repair and rebuilding process. That's like the engine is sputtering and you need to give it extra high-quality fuel just to get it going again.
That's a really important point for recovery. Don't skimp on protein or calories when you're laid up.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
If we connect all this back to the bigger picture, nutrition provides the literal building blocks and the energy for all the complex mechanobiological processes we've spent today discussing, from tendon adaptation to scar tissue remodeling to muscle repair.
It underlies everything.
It really does. It's not just fuel for performance on game day. It's an indispensable, fundamental part of everyday arm health, long-term injury prevention, and effective recovery. Without proper nutrition, honestly, all the best training plans, all the best rehab protocols in the world, they're going to be severely hampered. You can't build without materials.
Wow. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, really peeling back the layers on this complex issue of pitching arm injuries.
It's a multifaceted problem for sure.
It really is. We started by looking at the, frankly, shocking prevalence of these injuries, especially things like UCL tears and how they're affecting younger and younger players.
Yeah, the numbers are concerning.
Then we dug into the complex interplay of factors overuse, mechanics, fatigue, the whole chasing velocity culture, and the nuanced ways our bodies adapt to stress. Sometimes adapting well, but sometimes crossing that line, especially when the incentives push too hard.
That adaptation versus pathology line is key.
Absolutely. Then we dove deep into the science of tendon health, mechanobiology, and the challenges of scar tissue formation.
Understanding the tissue response.
Right, which led us to the practical stuff, the power of targeted loading using specific exercise types, eccentrics, isometrics, plyometrics, each sending unique signals.
Using exercise as medicine intelligently.
Exactly. We analyzed the double-edged sword of weighted balls, the velocity gains versus the potential risks, and unanswered questions about the mechanism.
A tool that needs careful consideration.
Definitely. And finally, we highlighted the fundamental and maybe often overlooked importance of nutrition. Not just fuel, but the literal building blocks for tissue health, repair, and recovery.
Can't neglect the foundation.
You really can't. We sincerely hope this deep dive has given you, our listener, a clearer roadmap, a better framework for understanding and protecting your pitching arm. Whether you're an athlete yourself, a coach, a parent, or just a curious mind who loves the game.
Hopefully some actionable insights in there.
We hope so. Thank you so much for sharing your sources with us and for joining us on this exploration today.
My pleasure. And maybe as you reflect on all these insights we've discussed, the mechanics, the loading, the biology, the incentives, perhaps consider this final thought. Considering the truly significant mechanical demands we place on the pitching arm and the body's incredible adaptive capacity, but also its inherent vulnerability, how might we, collectively, need to rethink the entire athletic development pathway?
The whole system.
The whole system, from the earliest stages in youth leagues all the way up through high school, college, and professional training. How can we fundamentally shift the focus to prioritize sustainable arm health right alongside performance gains? instead of allowing the current structure, the current incentives, to unintentionally perhaps drive injury rates?
That's a big question. Prioritizing health within a performance-driven system.
The huge question. But maybe the future of arm health in baseball, ensuring players can have long, healthy careers. Maybe it depends on us making that a central question for every coach, every athlete, every parent, and every organization involved in the game. Something to definitely keep exploring.
A powerful thought to end on. Keep learning, keep questioning indeed. Thanks again.